Concord was originally teased last year with a simple video that showcased a ship cruising through space. After seeing that short teaser, I honestly expected to see a story-driven FPS. This is a first-party Sony game, after all, but maybe it'd be something like an MMO, a la Destiny. I was on board for a new experience regardless, but then I was somewhat surprised to learn that Concord is in fact a 5v5 shooter. And now that I've played it, I'm very glad that Concord does plan on keeping up with its world lore and ongoing storyline, since some of my favorite FPS games like Overwatch and Apex Legends do this seasonally as well. Each season that releases will be free to all players who only have to purchase the game and enjoy future updates to come. While I enjoyed my time in the limited hands-on preview overall, I have several concerns for the longevity of Concord and what it has to offer. Concord's meat and potatoes formula is a pretty standard 5v5 setup, with two teams choosing their preferred character before diving into an objective-based team battle. During the preview, I was able to play 3 of 6 modes that will be available at launch: Trophy Hunt, Cargo Run, and Clash Point. Trophy Hunt was the only one that featured respawns in the match and was basically kill-confirmed team deathmatch. The single life modes were tough to warm up on while still getting to know the game, as failure obviously means you're out of the action for a bit. And while Concord is a fairly straightforward FPS, I have a core criticism a mere 2 months from its August 24th launch. In the build I played, the movement felt extremely floaty and required a lot of time to get used to. And while Concord will be released on PC day and date with PS5, I was only able to preview this on PS5 with a controller. So with that in mind, I'd say the movement is heavily reminiscent of Destiny and Halo. Again, it is incredibly floaty, which could be a fun element if it is done well. However, the way the preview build felt, the feather-like jumps and hang time really didn't match the amount of fast-paced fights that could occur at any time in the matches. While Halo does utilize a similar floaty jump mechanic, the rest of the mechanics and gameplay in Halo justify that reasoning and don't make it feel like the odd element out. Grenades also feel light when lobbed through the air, the various abilities in Halo all have the same weight and cadence to them, and the match pacing reflects the balancing between the base game mechanics. Similarly, Destiny is a game that's more PvE related, and thus does not need the incredibly snappy mechanics that Halo or Concord need in PvP fights. Even in the PvP fights in Destiny, the usual TTK is slower since the fights can be drawn out due to the different class abilities allowing for slower or faster play, depending on how players choose to engage. So if they decide to be more direct or play a little bit more reserved. Each class has different movement capabilities and healing abilities that ensure match pacing stays consistent throughout. So the problem in Concord, at least in this preview version, is that it takes little pieces from games like Halo and Destiny and mixes them together in a formula that doesn't quite come together for me as of yet. Concord actually utilizes the same type of dodge animation from Destiny that pulls you out into third person. While I liked this element in Destiny, in Concord it doesn't quite work because there's a brief but noticeable delay between your input of the dodge and the actual deployment. This can make or break your life since timing is everything in competitive play, and a single hesitation or simulated hesitation through the delayed input can punish you greatly. There are set to be 6 total maps at launch, so maybe some of the game modes will feel better paced and optimized on the other ones when spread out. But the way things stand currently, most maps felt oddly misshapen. Some lanes were too long or big and barely saw rotations, while the second lane in another map would just feel entirely too small and cause prolonged teamfights due to its claustrophobic size. Concord touts its competitive nature and fast-paced fights. I love all of that, but found that the competitiveness risks being unwelcoming to new players attempting to learn the game because most of the game modes are single life focused. It's important to note that even if you are an incredible player, Concord is not a game that allows for many 1v2 fights to be won. Unlike a game of Apex or Halo where you can potentially outsmart your opponents and win in 1v2 scenarios, Concord is so heavily a team game that you're not able to succeed if you're on your own. While this is the point of team FPS games, it's pretty punishing for modes like Trophy Hunt where you're encouraged to go off and get kills for the objective. Another reason these lopsided matchups are impossible to win is the fact that each character in Concord has their own health pool and hitbox. This would be fine if the characters had your traditional classes, but Concord doesn't utilize your typical class system. Usually, each class has their own health stats that you can expect each character in that label to have. Take a look at Overwatch, for example. Most tanks have a base health of anywhere from about 525 to 700, with combinations of shields or armor in-game for specific characters that have them like D.Va and Reinhardt. In Concord, it was incredibly difficult to tell what exactly the health pool was for any of the classes, since nothing was really established with their system. For example, One-Off is a really cute robot who sucks up trash and is most definitely a tank character with his big physique, clunky movement, and hard-hitting weaponry who has 300 health. However, Teo, who is essentially a DPS that plays like your traditional ground soldier-like character with no tank abilities, has 220 health as a Concord Ranger class. That's only 80 off of your tank character. But Roka, another character who is essentially a DPS, is classified as a Hunt and has a mere 170 health. What these non-traditional classes mean is extremely confusing. In the preview, we weren't given details on each class and what the terms mean, but it all seems a bit arbitrary when the health pools and damage numbers vary so much, causing an even further division of game balancing. Overwatch also utilizes the system of ensuring there is a roster for the amount of characters allowed from each class. Concord currently does not utilize a mechanic like this and allows players to use whatever characters they want, since these class systems are not traditional. While this is fun in theory, my brief experience playing a competitive game like Concord, it doesn't pan out too well. Another reason Concord is so heavily a team-based game is that each character has their own running speed and damage output. It could be argued that this is an extension of the lack of clear classes, but I did want to focus on this as its own balancing issue. The DPS on characters is pretty important since you're allowed to have a team of whatever characters you want. There are definitely some overpowered characters in the preview build that you really did need on your team if you wanted to win, specifically in Trophy Hunt. Let's take a look at the rocket launcher free gunner Roka. She's able to deal 43 damage with direct hits while rapidly firing and establishing her lock-on target almost instantly. After having done some watchbacks, it seems there's no real answer to what the distance of Roka's splash damage is, and how much it does consistently. So far, I've seen it hit from a decent distance for 12 damage, then also hit for 27 damage closer to the target. Roka also has 8 total rockets to use before she has to reload, so these numbers add up pretty quickly. Comparing this to Overwatch's Pharah, another rocket launcher wielding character, she only does 40 damage to an enemy when it's a direct hit, with her splash damage being about half that. She also has only 6 rockets before having to reload and does not have any abilities for lock on fire. Obviously, comparing these two games head to head isn't fair to either, but it's really important to note the difference between balancing. It is entirely possible that with time, Concord will be able to get a better grasp for how balancing should be maintained, but the way it stands currently, I'm concerned for the more casual player's experience and general approachability. The option to play crossplay with PC and PS5 will be available at launch, which is good news for players like me who have friends on both platforms. But it's a bit of a double-edged sword. The preview build I played showcased heavy aim assist on controllers. It was most noticeable on Roka, the rocket launcher character, since her weapon auto-locks on. I would find myself having to really rip the thumbstick away to get her to turn away from the nearest enemy that I didn't even want to target. The other characters I played didn't feature nearly as aggressive aim assist, but I could feel the magnetization there, which was a bit frustrating and concerning, considering the option for crossplay would be enabled at launch. While, yes, you can argue that on PC you can do more rapid movement adjustments on the fly, the ever-ongoing battle between controller aim assist versus keyboard and mouse movement just seems to be really aggravated here. My fingers are crossed that Concord is able to tighten up its floaty controls and address its character balancing before it drops on August 24th for PS5 and PC. For more Concord news or more game previews, be sure to stay right here at IGN.